All right there, everyone. Senator John McCain's funeral tragically turns into what amounts to little more than a cheap political rally. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. A huge welcome to our first-time viewers. We average about 10,000 new subscribers a month. It's amazing. So we certainly hope that you found here a new and welcoming home channel. I post videos twice a day analyzing current events in light of awesome conservative trends so that you could personally and professionally flourish. And you can help keep that going in three ways. First, by clicking on the Patreon or PayPal link below with your recurring or one-time gift. Second, by taking advantage of our current book deal where you can get my book, Classical versus Modern Education, for only 99 cents at the link below as an ebook download. And third, by hitting that bell and subscribe button. It's an absolute pleasure and privilege to have you as a part of this channel. All right, I'm sure many of you were saddened to learn that the eulogies offered at Senator John McCain's funeral took a number of potshots at President Trump and his nationalist populist supporters. During her eulogy there for her father, Meghan McCain said that, quote, "America does not boast because she does not have need to. The America of John McCain has no need to be made great again because America was always great," close quote. And then many in the church started applauding. It was really just very, very inappropriate. Even the New York Post came out and had to point out, just how really obnoxious it was to use her father's funeral as an occasion to make partisan political potshots. Now, of course, President Trump wasn't there. It was reported that John McCain requested they not be invited to his funeral. And another person who wasn't invited was Sarah Palin, who was John McCain's running mate in 2008. She has always spoken of him with the highest degree of honor and respect. Of course, Obama took his pot shots, too. He criticized those who traffic in what he called, quote, bombast and insult and phony controversies and manufactured outrage. John called on us to be bigger than that. He called on us to be better than that, close quote. And then, of course, former President Bush couldn't help but put his digs in. He described McCain as a man who, quote, respected the dignity inherent in every human life, a dignity that does not stop at borders, close quote. Now, I couldn't help but notice the whole strange irony in all of this. First off, you have all the who's who of the globalist elite attending this funeral for one that was himself a great defender and faithful advocate of globalization. And it's in this context that Meghan McCain said that there's no reason for America to become great again because America has always been great. And what seems to escape Meghan's notice is that while she wants to say that America has always been great, she misses the fact that America has not always been globalist. Globalism is what the slogan "Make America Great Again" is responding to. That's why those of us who are very excited to watch the nationalist, populist Sweden Democrats make huge gains in the upcoming election there this Sunday are saying, "Make Sweden great again." It's not as though Sweden hasn't always been great. That's not the point of the slogan. The point of the slogan is to remind us that Sweden hasn't always been globalist. It hasn't always celebrated open borders and multiculturalism. It hasn't always seen the disappearance of an industrial and manufacturing jobs and increased blue-collar unemployment as signs of economic development. It hasn't always spit upon and ridiculed and impugned and mocked its customs, culture, and traditions as racist, bigoted, and xenophobic. Making America great again and making Sweden great again is all about declaring our independence from the tyrannies of globalization and restoring a sense of national sovereignty and dignity, where we can once again be sovereign nations, where our borders are secure, where our civic leaders actually protect our jobs and investments rather than shipping them overseas, where our politicians once again seek the best interests of citizens rather than migrants, where nations' cultures, customs, and traditions are revered rather than ridiculed by the very politicians who claim to defend and protect them. That's what making America great again, and Sweden great again, and Poland great again, and Hungary great again, and Italy great again. More than that, there's something fascinating about funerals. Scholars in the field of ritual studies have observed that rituals don't simply mark the various ways we enter into things like baptism or birthdays or marriage or a signing ceremony or a new house or job, whatever. Rituals also mark our exits as well. And so in many respects, there are really two kinds of deaths that we experience in human culture. There's, of course, physical death, when a living person ceases to exist, but there's also something called ritual death, where the physical death of the person is publicly and formally acknowledged and commemorated through ceremonies that we call, for example, funerals or memorials. And what is so fascinating with funerals, generally speaking, is that they're often as much about acknowledging the newness of life as they are about mourning the dead. So in the Christian tradition, which of course John McCain was a part, funerals are rooted in the death and resurrection of Christ, which promises to raise this interred body up from the dead and into newness of life in the new creation when Christ returns, when God is all in all, death is forever banished, and life and joy abound. Interestingly, in the Hindu tradition, when they cremate the body in the funeral pyre, such an act is interpreted as repeating the god Vishnu's act of creation by creating heat which both consumes but also fertilizes. The cremation act is itself an act of recreation that repeats Vishnu's original creative act. It's very, very fascinating stuff. I bring this up because I couldn't help but interpret the words offered by Meghan McCain and Presidents Bush and Obama as very real attempts to not merely bury our former senator, but also attempts at burying the nationalism and the populism that's sweeping the world and is represented here in the United States by our current President Donald Trump. In other words, this was a funeral that was not just for John McCain. It was turned into what many hoped to be a funeral for the nationalist populism sweeping our nation, as well as attempts at resurrecting and revitalizing secular globalization, to which both our political parties have been so faithfully dedicated these last 4 decades. Globalization and the whole notion of the relativizing of border and economy, custom, race, religion, and tradition to transnational, transcultural political and economic protocols are seen as salvific in the eyes of the globalist elite, represented, of course, by Meghan McCain and our 2 former presidents. It's salvific in that it saves us, it delivers us from the terrors of nationalism and racism and ethnic-inspired violence, xenophobia and anti-Semitism, and the list goes on and on. Globalism rescues us from poverty and hunger. It opens up new possibilities for women and ethnic and sexual minorities. This is what these true believers really stand for. And the fact that they were willing to turn the funeral into a kind of political rally for a revitalized globalism speaks volumes in terms of what they really value as salvific in human affairs. Unfortunately for those speakers and for the attendees at John McCain's funeral, I think the reality of it all, I'm sorry to say to them, but I think the reality of it all is that John McCain's funeral really was in many ways not simply a commemoration of the death of John McCain. I think it can be legitimately construed as a commemoration for the death of globalization. I do think we were witnessing 2 burials there. The burial of a revered but highly controversial senator on the one hand, and the burial of the worldview to which he and those attendees were so faithfully dedicated. The fact is simply that there is nothing that the globalist elite can do to stop the rise of nationalist populism sweeping the world, especially here in the United States. And so if there is a revitalization or renewal represented in that funeral, it was nothing less than the revitalization renewal of the very nationalism that John McCain once so valiantly defended and fought for. And so that really makes President Trump's response to the funeral all the more significant. Later that evening, when the reports came in on the partisan nature of the event and Meghan McCain's comments, President Trump responded to all of this with a very simple tweet. It simply read, "Make America Great Again." As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Click on our Patreon or PayPal links below where you can become a supporter of this channel and help us to continue to analyze current events in light of conservative trends so that you can personally and professionally flourish. God bless.